Welcome to the SEA's Coffee Retail Summit. This session is the internal focus, customer experience and community starts from within. My name is Elizabeth Odeshola, SEA's Chief People Officer, and I'll be hosting this session. We are joined by 3 retail community members. We will hear from each and then we'll come back together for the Q&A from you, the audience. Make sure to leave questions in the chat by clicking the purple Q&A tab button of the chat on the screen. It is my pleasure to introduce Nathalie Leonidas and Daniel Brown of Gilly Brew Bar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nathalie Leonidas, and I am the co-founder of Gilly Brew Co., alongside Daniel Brown, who is the founder and CEO.
Where we began. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us. So Gilly started in Stone Mountain, Georgia. We're in the historic district of this city. For those of you who don't know, Stone Mountain is known geographically because it has it's the largest rock mass in the world. It's a big piece of granite that people walk on every single day. There's thousands of people that walk up the mountain, so much so that it is considered Georgia's #1 tourist attraction. Just a walk away, you'll find a historical house. It was built 1834 for the first mayor of Stone Mountain. His name was Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was a slave owner. The house was built by slaves, and it was used for his residential home. It then became a hospital during the Civil War. It was a hotel. It's had so many different identities. Every day I walk into that property, I'm reminded of how much things these walls may have seen over the years. But it sat vacant for quite some time, and my family and I acquired the property. After passing it one day, I saw so much potential. I thought, wow, this is such a gem. And my intent, my main motive for even considering moving forward with this property was to build community. Community has been a passion of mine for quite a long time now. And my wife and I, in every way that we can, try to figure out ways we can facilitate. And so after trying to apply for some permits, and we tried to open the business and came up against a lot of red tape. Not only were we dealing with old regulations in a historic district, but we were also held back by a lot of the city leaders. And with us coming in, like, we wanted to create something that was needed for that community, like a third space, coffee shop, restaurant, like co-working space. And this is such a large property. It's 3,500 square feet. I thought, although it's a house, maybe we could create something with that. It took me about 2.5 years to finally be able to create a concept that worked well with what the city regulations were. And through that time, just revisiting those moments, I try not to remember the struggle that I went through, but in order for us to progress, at times I have to remember where I came from. And to be completely honest, it was some of the hardest 2.5 years of my life, as a Black male in a city that was so divided. And it wasn't a clear picture to me, especially going up that mountain. When you walk up Stone Mountain, I mean, it's so diverse. There's so many different nationalities, so many people of all ages and demographics. And just a few blocks away, when you go to the main street, you have a community that's still embedded in a lot of hatred and um, just wounds that was caused, because of past experiences. And out of that struggle, out of wanting to that desire of wanting to create community, um, the idea of creating this coffee shop came to mind. And initially, that wasn't my that wasn't the direction I wanted to go to. I knew a coffee shop would be great there. I didn't necessarily think that I would be the one who would operate it. But after receiving confirmation from so many people, they all said, "Well, I think you should be the one to spearhead like this whole thing, because you're the one that have the heart for this. You're the one who sees what everyone else doesn't see, because there's been such a negative narrative that was tied to Stone Mountain." And so that's how the idea of Gilly came about. Gilly Brew Bar was established at this location we call the Mayor's House. And through all of the pain that we experienced, we've been able to establish certain core values that we have, which stems off of our purpose and our mission. And it's really simple. Our purpose is to disrupt norms in an effort to build better communities. And our mission, very simple, to reimagine coffee culture.
Yeah, as we were growing and with community as foundational to who Gilly is and who we are, we embedded a strategic framework by how we operate, and that's people and product. We hold that tension dearly, right? And so with people, it is customer service. It's the events that we throw. It's disrupting anything that they would assume a coffee shop should be and is, to bridge a gap. And on the product side, we use a lot of innovation, storytelling, content creation to get this message across in Stone Mountain that that is not negative, that is positive, that brings community together. And so when we also in thinking about like this growth, how do we allow our employees, right? What does it mean for our employees to get that narrative, that understanding? We establish these values and these frameworks. Two of them I'm going to dive deeper into because they really do set the internal core and culture to Gilly, and why we've been able to create this experience of home that many of our customers talk about. But briefly, the first value is be you. Everyone is a contributor. And again, I'm going to dive deeper into that one. Get uncomfortable, be comfortable with change. There's a lot of things that change at Gilly. It's part of our storytelling. It's part of how we draw people in. The third is set the table, hospitality, know and be known. This is another one that I'm going to dive deeper into. The fourth is get in good trouble, be a solutionary. We really encourage our bartists, our baristas who we call artists, to really be about solutions, and grind together, as you see. And then the last one is Pledge Bright. Pledge Bright is massively foundational for us because it reminds us to be a light in the communities that we are in, and that we feel called and planted in. So these values really do set the table for how we move and operate as a company and as a brew bar. But the two that I wanted to jump into is be you, again. And so that for us, we know that care for the customer begins with care for our employees. Each person on our team brings something so unique and so invaluable that we try our best to foster and integrate into our operations. What that looks like for one of our employees, he's a music producer, and all the sounds that you will hear from Gilly will come from him. And as a barista, he's also producing music for us because that's his passion. And that has also allowed for these community of artists to form around Gilly and this incredible group of people that continues to grow. Another example would be one of our team members is an incredible communicator and loves to facilitate good customer service online. And so he takes over a lot of our customer interactions on social media and makes sure that everyone feels integrated and involved. And we've given him the voice and space to do that. The second one that you see is set the table. Daniel and I intentionally try not to outgrow the bar so that we're constantly building relationship with our team and they're building relationship with one another. And when relationship is facilitated in that way in which we know each other and they know us, we ask them how they're doing and they ask us how we're doing. Customers experience that and they see that and they too participate in this relational transaction of like, I come to Gilly and I feel like I'm coming home. And that's often what we hear. And we're going to jump into a little more examples of that, of what that actually looks like on a practical level. But one story, and then I'll let Daniel take the other one. But one of the stories is when we walk into a bar, when new customers come in, there is often our returning customers or people that love us will lead new customers through the menu and they take ownership. They're like, oh, you got to try this or you got to try that. Or man, when Daniel and Neftali are not behind the bar, you should have a conversation with them. They're so approachable. Or they end up having conversations amongst themselves and they'll come back and tell us, we just had this incredible conversation with some of the customers upstairs. So it inevitably sets the space for community. Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. I could recall another moment where we had a customer who came in at a really awkward time. And I'm sure many of you have experienced where you're changing shifts. And so we had two people on and they were getting off and her order got a little mixed up where we forgot to communicate to the next shift, or it wasn't communicated well that a drink was ordered and the next shift had to make it essentially. And so she ended up waiting for like 25 minutes for this drink and left. And she wrote a review and she had all right to share how she felt. And obviously she wasn't happy at all. But because we knew this customer, it was very important to us to try and make it right, make what we did wrong right, because we know we were in the wrong. And one day I saw her walking by, and Neff is literally standing next to me, and I'm like, I think that's the lady there. We should definitely go out and say something. And by the time we got to her, she was like halfway down the block, and we literally chased her down and we spoke to her. We said, man, we apologize for, we just explained the whole scenario to her, and she was almost brought to tears. She was even surprised that we remembered that it was her. And to this day, like, because of that moment, she comes like all the time. She loves what we have to offer. And she loves how we addressed that situation as well.
Yeah. So this is how we set the tone and our internal culture, ultimately setting how we interact with our community.
Thank you, Nathalie and Daniel. So continuing our internal focus, we're joined by Selena Vigora of Blue Bottle Coffee. After her presentation, we'll be back to chat with everyone. Keep your questions coming in the chat. Welcome, Selena.
Hi, everybody. Can you see me? Awesome. So I don't have a presentation. I don't have any slides to offer, but hopefully I have enough stories to tell. This is my favorite topic. So when Julie first reached out to me about this topic, she actually had to help me because I have like so many thoughts in my head about this. And so I just wanted to start by saying, like this internal focus and staff feeling valued is definitely something that I've learned to care about so much during my growth in my leadership. But a big part of how my leadership style has developed started from my journey as a barista. So I started baristaing maybe 21 years ago. It was my first job, one of my first jobs after graduating from college in the Philippines. And when I came across Blue Bottle, that was like the first time I had moved from, Los Angeles, which is, I half grew up half here and half in the Philippines. So it was the first time I moved away for a job. And what I love is that in my growth in coffee and attending coffee events, I found a company that completely aligned with my own personal values as a barista. So when I first started and was living in San Francisco for a little bit, I was very lonely, but my drive to understand coffee and be a part of a greater coffee community was my driving force. So I had 2 jobs in coffee. I was working as a barista at the Ferry Building, and I also had a part-time job at Modern Coffee in Oakland. And because I wanted to learn so much about coffee, any event that was being held in any cafe in San Francisco, if there was a latte art throwdown, I was there. If Blue Bottle was hosting an event, I'd be one of the first to volunteer. And so as I, started also volunteering for the SCA, starting as a timekeeper for competitions, seeing and understanding the professional barista, I started developing kind of like my own sense of pride in what kind of career barista that I wanted to be. And very quickly in my career at the Ferry Building, I think it was within the first 6 to 8 months that I became a lead barista. As a lead barista, I was able to like share the technical skills, share my passion for coffee itself with the team, and sort of start to slowly grow like my leadership style, right? But on a very technical side of coffee. Shortly after that, the opportunity to become the manager for that cafe was there. So I jumped into a leadership role immediately. And when I moved to Blue Bottle from my first cafe, it was because I was looking for a more structured, a bigger company that would provide me with the tools. But in the beginning of my role or my life at Blue Bottle, I should say, we were actually still very small. We only had 7 cafes. We were only in the Bay Area at the time. And so I ended up having to find my own way and create my own systems. And it's cool because those systems that I created earlier on are still the systems that I use to this day for ordering coffee, and all of these things that make my life and my team's life easier. But as a leader earlier on at Blue Bottle, I was around for like slowly, like our culture was something that I had learned to love. It was something that was sort of unspoken, but it was felt. And we were all very protective of it. And as Blue Bottle has grown, we've really solidified what our culture is. Now we have videos for training, and now everybody that's new to Blue Bottle understands who we are and what we do and what sets us apart. So when we first started growing in LA, in the LA market, given the choice between being a manager or a lead barista, I chose to be a lead barista. And I would always say that, and to this day, actually, that lead barista is my spirit animal. And it's because I think it's really important as a leader to be present and be front of house. And as a lead barista, there wasn't anything taking me away from being on the coffee bar with my team. And so as we started to grow in LA and Abbot Kinney opened, which is the cafe that I manage now, I also started as a lead barista because it was the same value. We were going back and forth about what we wanted a manager to be. When I was at the Ferry building, it kind of shifted towards wanting a manager that was going to be doing a lot of admin, and that didn't feel comfortable with my style of leadership. And so so I started as a lead barista, develop relationships with my teammates, started growing the community. And the main important thing that I love about what we're taught in our structure, at Blue Bottle, we're given a lot of tools. We shifted the role or the title from being cafe managers to cafe leaders, because as the company started to grow, we realized that what we wanted to do and what the intention was to build an internal pipeline and really be able to grow our baristas into our next set of future leaders. And I've always agreed with that servant leadership culture. And so as a leader, we're taught, and I firmly believe that if I treat my baristas as my customers, they in turn will treat our guests, with the same level of happiness that they feel. And it's really important to kind of create that work environment. So I'm gonna share a couple of notes that I have scribbled down for this, and excuse me because I'm super nervous. So on Friday, I realized that a lot of things that we taught, my friend and I taught on Friday, effective communication for cafe workers. I realized that a lot of concepts that I was teaching were actually really applicable to why or how I've created a work environment where my team is thriving. The biggest part of our role that I've come to understand is that as a manager, I'm always a barista first. I don't remove that part of who I am in my cafe, because as a barista first, it guides the decisions that I make, right? Whether I'm scheduling, who I'm partnering together. When it comes to ordering, it's understanding how it feels as a barista on the front line. If I'm not ordering properly and we run out of product, my baristas are the first to feel that and have to experience the wrath from the guests. So me being a barista first will always guide how I lead, right? I think it's also important to be in it with my team. I'm always on bar. I'm always present. As soon as there's a rush, I'm there with them. And my being there with them, it contributes to morale, high morale. Having a leader that is able to do the job as well as coach and direct, make sure that I'm able to absorb some of the stress and be just be in the trenches with them, I think has been a really big part of my leadership style and why my team loves working with me. I also have a really big sense of pride for what I do, and it stems always from my being a barista, right? So in my growth from being a barista, I've been through barista camps. I've pushed myself to attend SEA classes with the hopes that I could eventually teach in workshops, which I am now, and I'm always nervous every time that I do, but I love to share what I've learned, and I get to also do that with my team. And so my own, I don't know, I've always just felt like my cafe is a reflection of myself as a barista. My attention to quality, I still get to execute through my team, right? If I see, latte art that could be better or milk textures that could be better, because I know the job, I can easily coach it in a way that feels good for my team. As far as building community, as a Filipino, we have a very innate sense of hospitality that I feel like being a barista it just feels very natural to me. And so we've been in Venice for 7 years now, when you have such a big community of regulars, and because that is something that I've always valued and something that I've enjoyed in my role, and why I always want to be behind bar and be a barista. My team understands that. And one sense of pride that I have is if I'm not on bar, if I'm in the back of house and I can hear my teammates, my baristas engaging with the community, everyone knows personal history or has personal connections with a big, a big chunk of our community, with, our our guests in Venice are amazing and they love us. And every Christmas, we always make personalized holiday cards, for example, and we're handwriting out cards to about 250 to 300 people every year because that's important to me. And now it's become something that's important to my team. One thing that I've also, as a barista first, have always had a lot of pride in and has come along my journey and volunteering with SEA is understanding my part in the industry. A lot of this also comes from, having met really important people in coffee. I'm happy to say that Ida Batye, for example, is one of my good friends and biggest mentors. And in the way that she always has communicated to me the importance of the barista in the industry, that all of the work done at farm level would be nothing if baristas don't brew their coffee well, if we don't speak of it right, if we don't know how to sell it, then all is lost. So understanding the importance of my role in this greater coffee chain is just something so that I've developed so much into me that I am able to pass that down to my baristas because I'm always present. So, and then lastly, as a barista, I think I'm able to really model the behavior that I expect to see. Again, coming with that sense of pride, pride in my work, when it comes to drink quality, when it comes to having, an innate sense of hospitality and being kind to people. Because I'm always present, I'm able to sort of orchestrate and make sure that things sound the way that I want, and everything is always aligned. Again, the importance of my alignment to our company values, that empowers me that what I see and hear and feel are correct. But because I'm always a barista first, I'm able to coach on that. So I think, so as far as being a barista first and that guiding, all of the decisions I make and how I lead, and that goes hand in hand with the company culture. So again, speaking about Blue Bottle and me being completely aligned with our company values, in the beginning, our mission was very simple. There were just 3 words: deliciousness, hospitality, and sustainability. In the industry, we talk a lot about being kind to people and making good coffee. And it sounds really simple, but it's not. There's a lot of complexity that goes into that. And so what I love is that, as a cafe leader at Blue Bottle, we're given a lot of tools to make sure that all of this is happening. We have a certain set of standards when it comes to how the cafe should look and feel. That's what we call the 5 beats. So everything from the first beat is, how does it feel, as your guests are approaching the cafe? So anything that they might be experiencing or observing while they're waiting in line, things like the volume of the music, what music is playing, how does our display look? We have standards for that. So it makes it really easy for me to do my job and also make sure that my baristas understand that. Our beat 2 is the experience at POS. If you're met with a smile, are you greeted warmly? Does the barista at the register have full understanding of our menu, that we're able to guide you smoothly through what you might be looking for? Beat 3, we even have a metric for that, what should be happening while you're waiting. It shouldn't be a dead silence. You should always be checked in on. Beat 4 is the handoff. We try to make sure every small detail counts. We try to make sure that when we hand off your drink, it's with eye contact. We're handing it off to you by your name and confirming what your drink is, and that we have the logo facing the guest. And lastly, beat 5 is, how does the cafe look as you want to stay inside? Have we gotten rid of dirty dishes? Or at the condiment bar on your way out, is it neat? Is it stocked? So we have all of these metrics or standards that make it very easy as a leader to set the standard, but also make sure that our team is following it. So that's in terms of the cafe space. In terms of the team, again, we're given so many tools to make sure that as we develop our team members, that we're just doing it consistently. So one big thing that I shared in our workshop on Friday was the systems that I've created in terms of having bi-weekly one-on-ones. as I said, as a barista, it's important for you to be present, but also as a leader, you have to have that same level of presence with your team. It's important for you to know every single team member. I know my baristas like the back of my hand. I know all of their individual strengths. I know all of their individual weaknesses. And it's because I'm present. It's because I'm working next to them every single day. It's because I'm sitting down and talking to them as regularly as I can, seeking some information, understanding where they're at any given moment. And it's just really paying attention. When I hear from other cafes in and outside of Blue Bottle, people approach me all the time about what my leadership style is. And it really is when I hear when managers are never on bar or are on their laptops the whole time. I don't know. It's just not something that I understand why that happens. There isn't a lot of work in coffee when it comes to admin. And so if I'm not spending most of my time with my team, I don't know what else I'm doing, right? So for me, the important part was being able to create systems that would make it really easy for me to step off and do some ordering or do some quick admin. The longest time that I would be away from the team is probably if there was a meeting and I would physically have to be pulled away from that. But other than that, I'm always with my team. I'm doing one-on-ones. At the end of the shift of the morning, basically halftime, every day, we're doing what we call post-shift feedback. And this is something that I started doing with my team when we learned how to give feedback 4 or 5 years ago. And it's been like the biggest, it's just like the biggest thing for us. It helps squash a lot of drama in the cafe. Again, we make coffee. There shouldn't be anything that happens in the cafe at a given time that we should take home or that we should be so upset about. And so I wanted to create a space where we could all talk about the shift. The basic intention behind it was, since we all got feedback training, was knowing that it's something that doesn't come naturally to all. Giving feedback is difficult if you don't have the tools. Receiving feedback is difficult if you're not conditioned to that. So I thought it was really important to create a feedback environment. And that is alive and well in my cafe. And at the beginning of creating post-shift feedback, I had to physically be present. I'd have to grab people that were about to clock out for the shift because they were trying to sneak away from it. And I had to be in those sessions every single day. And I'd have to conduct it. And it was as simple as, what did we do well together as a team? And I would make sure that everybody had something to share. And on the other side, as far as constructive feedback went, I wanted us to talk openly about what wasn't the best. Where did we struggle? Where did we not feel supported by one another? And now at this point, we have such this environment for giving feedback that I don't have to ask for it. As soon as the openers step off from their shifts, as soon as they're done with side work, post-shift feedback is just a natural part of their day, and it's created healthy relationships between my team members, between myself and team members. This is always my opportunity also to be present as a coach, which is one of my favorite parts of my role. With my experience being a barista and then volunteering for SEA, I've had many opportunities to work events outside of Blue Bottle, which I've loved. I've gone to travel. I've gone to Brazil, managing the coffee bars. I've gone to Vancouver and been, part of the barista team for the TED conference. And I was selected to be a lead barista during that event. And I had no idea why. And I was leading, in my eyes, what were baristas that I looked up to, competitive baristas. And the way that I felt for myself was, well, who am I to lead them? I'm just me. But being in contact with so many professional baristas and baristas that I look up to, I've learned that my place in this industry is that I understand how to support. I understand how to lead. I understand how to look for what people need to be able to make work comfortable and enjoyable. And that's what I bring to my team. I love being present. I want my baristas to love what we do as much as I do. And even though I understand that not all of our baristas, and I know that's true in my cafe as well as any cafe in the world, not everyone is there to be a career barista or professional barista. But, you chose to come here. And my mentality towards that is we still have a level of work that we're expected to provide. And if you want to be here, like, just do it well. If you do the basics, right? We're given all of the tools to execute coffee, to make it taste good, to share it with our guests, to make sure that our guests enjoy their experience. All of these things are simple, but as a leader, if I wasn't present to constantly orchestrate that and share the tools and provide the experience that I've had, the level of experience that my team would have and the level of the quality of the experience that my guests would have because of how prepped my team is would be vastly different. And so I think that's it. Like, if I were to kind of just sum it up, as a leader, what I think I bring to my team is that I'm always going to be a barista first. It guides every decision that I make. Leading with empathy and thinking about that, how my decisions will always impact my team first, and that will ultimately impact my guests and the growth of our business. It's a really huge focus. So I really try to treat my baristas as my main focus and as my customers. And if I keep them happy, I create a work environment that I love coming back to. Again, I've been with Blue Bottle. This June will be 11 years and I'm still at it and I still love what I do. Being a barista and being able to continually learn and grow my own personal leadership style, it keeps me here. It's just what I love. And I think having that passion and love and dedication for it also like creates the impact on my team ultimately. If you are a manager or a cafe owner, I'm not saying that you need the background that I have to effectively lead your teams. But ultimately what it is really being present and understanding that, the baristas have such a huge role in this industry. And unfortunately, it's seen as an entry-level position, but we do so much work as baristas, right? It takes a level of craft and technical skill. It takes being able to balance that craft and technical skill with understanding how to deal with people. And you have people with different like mood levels and just everything. We have to employ such a level of empathy every single day in our jobs. And it takes a lot of emotional labor, right? And being able to like create consistently every single day this cafe culture that guests want to come back to, it's a huge responsibility because our industry still has a lot of room to grow. And baristas are at the forefront of that. And I understand that as a leader. And so every day I think about, how do I make this fun? How do I make my baristas love what we do here together, even though this might not be their future career? And, again, you don't have to have a barista background to be able to lead effectively. I think you just have to care about leading effectively. There are a lot of tools out there. We have a lot of training every month or every quarter at least. And that keeps me going. That is my internal motivation is I love being taught and being provided skills and materials. And I love sharing that. I love sharing that with my team. I love sharing that with my greater coffee community. And you just have to be present as a leader. If it's something that you care about, seek that growth for yourself. There are a lot of tools out there. Like I said, there's LinkedIn Learning, there's Harvard Business Review. It's a book that we're going over. And if you truly want to be a great leader, I think you will be, because you just have to want it to be able to execute on that. And it's just about wanting to be kind to your team, wanting to be present for your team, understanding that if you're developing and being kind to your team will take care of your guests, and together that takes care of your business and your business will grow. Elizabeth, I know there's 4 minutes left, but I think that's everything that I had.
Hi, really, thank you, Nathalie, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Selena. While everyone gets their webcams on, I really want to say I really enjoyed hearing from you all. I think what's really inspiring is how your focus is really about building the community. Nathalie and Daniel had spoken about the mission of reimagining coffee culture, the values with the employees: be you, get uncomfortable. Caring for the customer begins with the care for employees. And Selena, you've just really touched on a lot about the leadership aspect and how, as a leader, you've got to embody that yourself to ensure that you get the culture that you want from your staff by being there and being present. So how we'll wait for Nathalie and Daniel to get their cameras on and their microphones on, and we'll answer questions from the audience. It seems that we've got quite a few, so this is quite exciting. And yeah, if you can please still send more questions in, we'll ask them if we've got enough time. So I think I'll start with the questions that were directed at Selena while we wait for Nathalie and Daniel. So Selena, being in coffee as long as you have, how do you continue to the longevity of the passion you have for your role, team, and industry?
I guess I'm just weird like that. Like, for whatever reason, when I found coffee, I just knew that this was it for me. My first job in coffee, we were making coffee right at all. It was, and I think having that background in coffee, from having no idea that there was a right way to make things, and then being introduced to the specialty industry and the crafting of things, that was like my aha moment. I'm like, okay, this is the career of my choice. This is what I want to do. And, you know, and then becoming a part of Blue Bottle, and then becoming a greater part of the, like the, just like greater coffee community, realizing like we're surrounded by, and I don't know what it is about coffee, but you're surrounded by a lot of really passionate people. And so there are times that like, I'll feel it. I'll feel like, okay, you know, my own morale will dip. And I think I've always like looked to SCA for that. So whenever we would have events, and my ability to take myself away from work and then be a part of the greater coffee community, like always invigorated me again and remotivated me to come back to my team with like, oh my God, you guys, this is what I learned. And I think also just that continuity, I always want to continue to learn and grow. And one thing that I learned about myself in one of my annual reviews was that my intrinsic motivators are just being part of something, you know, like being able to share what I love. And so like, it's never been about, you know, like we work in coffee, there isn't a lot of money here. So really, for those of us that are in this industry, we do it because we just love it. And I really can't explain it, but I do. And so for me, I think what keeps me going at work is, on the one half, for my own growth and development, is this continuous learning and geeking out on leadership. And now I'm able to share it with my greater like coffee community at, you know, and within SCA. And that's something that kind of fuels me in my growth and my own motivation. But when it comes down to my team, I just love my baristas. I love what we do together. We have a work environment that's fun. You know, I listen to them every day, and like they get it. And I have so much pride for what we do together. Like they understand like the level of showmanship. If I were on bar and how I connect with guests, they get it. They watch me, they see me, they do. And it just like, I just feel like a proud mama every day. And for me, I just kind of always want to keep feeding into that. And I think that that's what it is for me.
I think that's great. And I really love the fact about you feeling like a proud mama. So I don't know if we've got a technical glitch. So hopefully our production team could let us know where Nathalie and Daniel are. But having said that, what leadership skills do you find most useful for you?
So you were in our workshop on Friday, and I actually wrote it down on my notebook. And I think, you know, like what I shared were, you know, there's 6 communication styles. And I think literally every day it's doing all of it. So it's listening, you know, like I mentioned in my presentation, you know, I have to do bi-weekly one-on-ones, and that's an expectation set by Blue Bottle for like our leadership, you know, our, like how we're supposed to like grow our baristas. Yeah. And outside of that, it's just really being attentive, right? So noticing something's wrong because I'm present, and being able to like just connect with your team, and so they feel supported. It's a really important part of my role. I'm always coaching. I mean, I think that one's self-explanatory because I have the capability to teach the hard skills and model it. I'm really able to like get in there and coach, and my team actually really loves when I'm there and help them improve from stacking tulips to doing beautiful rosettas because I can teach that, you know? So coaching and teaching go hand in hand. Like I said, mentoring is a big part of the role too. Again, I have a lot of experience behind bar that when it comes to like orchestrating and bar flow and hospitality, I'm able to share what I learned and share the value of why we do what we do. And I think that that's important. And then motivation's a big one. You know, got to keep the team happy, like jumping in when it's really busy or it's really stressful, or if there's like an interaction at the register and a guest is really angry, and being able to save my barista out of that and jump in. And also just making work fun. I mentioned on Friday, on Sundays when I'm on bar, that's my one main bar shift. I'm playing my R&B jams and the whole cafe will be singing with me. And like you know, just like, I like creating a fun environment. Like I want everybody to enjoy the space, not just those of us that are working behind bar, but even like the guests that are in the cafe.
No, I really like the fact that you played the R&B. I was saying to Nathaniel and Daniel that I had to play some before to get me, well, it was actually dancehall Jamaican music to just get me in the vibe for this call. So I can see being you pretty much is what really embodies and supports you in your leadership. And I think that's really great. Hi, Nathaniel and Daniel. I think I had the technical glitch. So to you guys, how do you hope the coffee shop culture in general changes in the next 5 years? This is a question put specifically to you both.
Yeah, go ahead, Dee. I'll let you take lead.
Okay, cool. As I mentioned when we did our presentation, I knew what was needed for our community was something like a coffee shop, but my experience with coffee shops weren't always the best. And so Gilly, we've in a lot of ways redefined what a coffee shop looks like. Like what would we like as a coffee shop? And that's the reason why we've decided to tag Brew Bar at the end of our name as opposed to Gilly Coffee Shop or Gilly Brew Bar. There are a lot of negative things attached to coffee shops. And although we operate very similar to one, we try to create language around something that everyone could appreciate and feel welcomed in. And so in the next 5 years, honestly, I hope to see more coffee cultures emulate that idea of not going into a community just to profit, but also being about the people. Because with most coffee shops, that's what I experienced. It just always seemed like coffee shop owners would come into a community to profit, make money, and then, that just sounds like gentrification. And so we want to go the complete opposite way. That's another reason why we prefer Brew Bar. Another thing I hope to see in the next 5 years would be an acceptance of coffee into the culinary world. I think for the longest time, coffee has always been a part of a meal, but I don't think it's been really respected as a beverage that could be paired with a meal. And so I think with my team and I, we're definitely headed in that direction. It'd be great to see other establishments go that way as well.
Yeah, and to jump in on that a little bit, I think something that we've also talked about is just seeing more Black and brown folks in the space in terms of education, in terms of leading and innovating. I think we have so much to offer and bring, but not at the sacrifices of who we are in our culture. And so our culture as Caribbean Islanders are embedded into our drink language. We call a drink a lick shot, which is a specialty beverage that you get from Gilly, or calling it Flatbush, the cappuccino of Flatbush, which is owed to Daniel, where he's from in Brooklyn. So just really adopting language that sounds like the community and sounds like where we're actually planted, and that the community has just as much stake in it. So yeah, just a lot more of us as Black and brown folks leading.
I think a lot of that change that you expect to see is something that we're ready for. The world is ready for it, and it's just putting the steps together. So I am really excited to see how this really does come forward and we're able to achieve that. And like you say, putting culture and adding your own touch to show the difference, but the value you can bring to the community, it's something that's really strong, and it's great to, I think, for people to understand and know. So this one's for everybody. How do you know who to hire? Do you look for people with lots of coffee knowledge?
I'll kick it off. I think on the front end, when people see some of our work, they assume that everyone on our team is just creative. And as an artist myself, I've been in multiple rooms with tons of creatives, and we create all these amazing ideas, but nothing really gets done. And so our approach to hiring, we try not to necessarily look for creatives, but we look for people that have strengths that we're weak in. And so, like Neff mentioned before, one of our bar leads, he's a great communicator. And I can't communicate with everyone, and it's so helpful to be able to give him that platform where he could use his skill to communicate and reach our audience, even when I'm not necessarily or physically there to be able to respond. So yeah, we just try to look for people who have a heart for serving and are great learners. But other than that, and it ties back to our value, we really want them to be themselves and bring what their skill set is into helping us grow as a company.
Yeah. And I think we also learned, I didn't come from a coffee background at all. Daniel taught me everything that I know about coffee. And then, of course, like I've pursued more coffee education, but at the time I was fairly ignorant. I think that background and our success has given us a lot of grace for people who have no idea anything about coffee, because that's a skill that can be taught. You can be taught how to pull a shot and the science and all those things, but you can't teach great customer service. You can't teach confidence. Like there's a lot of things that you otherwise are harder to teach, that we look for and that we place value on because our backgrounds wasn't in coffee. I had no expectation to be where I'm at right now. And Daniel could say the same. And so because of that, we genuinely believe that anybody can be taught how to be great with coffee. But there's other skills that aren't necessarily taught.
There. Selena, what are your views on that? I do completely resonate with Daniel and Nathaniel in that, where it's really, some skills just can't, it's harder to teach. And it is about having that natural ability for customer service and being there and being focused and being able to communicate and use other people's strengths where there are weaknesses within the team. So I think thinking of that when you're hiring, not just on having the coffee knowledge and then bringing you in, it's harder to bring someone that's got the skills, but they haven't got the attitude. It's hard to change that. But if you've got the attitude, we can teach you the skills. So I am in full support of that as well. Selena, what are your views on this and how hiring?
So I'm the worst at doing interviews because I love people, and so I'm very gullible when it comes to that process. The good thing is that, like we have a recruiting team now, which we didn't have before. And so we have a very specific set of questions that are very simple. And just, what Neff and Daniel have shared, I think we all feel that in coffee, right? We can all teach the technical skills. And I think it always boils down to the attitude. What we look for is do I feel that this person can give great hospitality? Will this person be kind? Will this person be somebody that shows like in their response to the questions, will I be able to mold this person? Are they connected to the company values? And I'm saying this because this is live. I had to do an interview last week because I'm hiring at my cafe, and I actually had to seek some guidance from our recruiter because okay, this person answered the questions, but there's a feeling that I have and I'm not sure, and they said that was absolutely legit. Go with your gut. And, what I look for is, do they use some of the words that we talk about? Like, do they talk about hospitality and how that feels? Do they talk about loving the cafe environment? Like, why are you looking to work here? Right? Is this just going to be a job to get you through, which I'm not going to not hire you because of that, but I want to hear why. I want to hear why you're seeking out working here in particular,
Right. As owners and managers in your businesses, you all talk about how important it is to be with to be on bar with your staff. How do you balance the demands of running the business with being on bar? Anyone could jump in to answer that one.
I can take that first. Like I said, there's what we do as managers, it's the same every day, every week, right? You have deadlines for ordering. That shouldn't take you an hour, And so I think what I've done in my time as a manager is I've created systems to make ordering very easy for me. I do also try to sometimes I use Google Calendar. Anytime, okay, this is when I step off to do this, or here's my meeting, so that I'm able to juggle my time and see what I have laid out for the day, right? Usually, we're so slammed right when I get in at 7:30. So I give myself 2 hours designated to actually be on bar through the rush and be supportive. And then I'll step off to do some of my other admin stuff. But then the rest of the day is pretty quiet. So this is now where I incorporate, okay, who can I pull from bar? Is this a good time for us to have our one-on-ones? Because it's really important. And that's a non-negotiable for me. So it's really creating systems, being organized, and really understanding how to manage your time to be able to be there for your team when they need you.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's an intentional choice that we make to be behind the bar, because there's so much that's happening around us, so much growth, so many meetings, so many things. But I think one thing that has helped us is a lot of our work is done at the mayor's house, and a lot of meetings happen there. And so our presence alone allows us the ability to jump behind the bar if there's time. And then once we've helped them to jump out, we also have started to schedule 1 hour on a Saturday, even if it's just an hour, even if we can't give any more than that, to be there and give our team a break. Whoever's on shift that day, we're like, all right, we're going to give you guys your break and we'll take over. And so it's surely really difficult and not something that we're not actively on the schedule as much, if at all, but we're really, really intentional about taking moments and time to be behind there. So it is a dancing and juggling act for sure.
I'll just add a little bit on top of that to say, I think we've done a great job of making being behind the bar fun too. I don't think when we put ourselves behind the bar is not, all right, let me just put myself on there so I could be present. Actually, I look forward to being behind the bar. I have a great time when I'm behind the bar. I can connect with whoever I'm working with. I can touch up on my skills because Neff knows I'm very competitive. And so randomly, if I'm behind bar and I see Neff walk in, I'm like, you want to throw down? Let's see what you got, So it keeps me on my toes. And then I'm able to really lead by example. I find a lot of times early on when I got consumed by the meetings that I wasn't really understanding some of the procedures at a point in time because I wasn't behind the bar. But when I'm familiar with the day to day and I can actually interact with customers and who I'm working with, it's really getting into the flow. It really gets me a better understanding of, okay, how can I best lead the team if I'm not behind the bar with them? So yeah, make the bar fun.
I agree. I think anything you do in life, to get through it, you've got to find a way to make it fun or make it attractive or engaging for it to be completed, the task. So I'd definitely like to come and see what Gilly's Bar is looking like at rush hour. Can you talk more about emotional labor? How do you coach your staff to balance emotional demands, especially through the pandemic?
Man,
these are not my questions, it's the audience. So
you guys are asking great questions. For us, we intentionally started to meet and do hangs with the understanding that it is not an easy time. Check-ins, really just building family, even more now. I think the intentionality to being behind the bar more and having fun matters now. Me and Daniel always joked, I would walk into the bar, I'm like, have you laughed 10 times today? And we'll start cracking jokes. And our baristas are right there and they're laughing with us. And it helps them to take a load off and laugh a bit. And it is not a normal time. So the best way to get through the time is to have fun and to be childlike and joyful. That's something that we tell them all the time. Like, if you're not having fun right now, take a breath. There's been moments we walked in and saw that one of our baristas were not okay, and hey, take the rest of the day off. Like, we'll cover it, or somebody will cover it. We'll make sure that it's covered. And so we're super in tune and checking in. And I think that's why the set the table, know and be known matters to us, because we do walk in and know you're not okay right now, and are able to address it in the moment.
Right, Selena.
Yeah, so I think, again, like, really, I'm just gonna go back to like being present for your team. You know, like Neff said, like, you have to be present to be able to be aware that somebody's coming in like maybe not at their best, and being able to recognize that requires you to be present and observant. And so really utilizing that time to connect with your teammates. You know, that this is where I've had to do this a lot, listening. You know, this time with COVID has been really stressful for a number of my baristas. And so outside of the biweekly one-on-ones, like, it's constant check-ins, really. And it is difficult as a manager, right? I don't have a background as a therapist. So what guides me and guides my conversations is really trying to listen as much as possible and try to be as empathetic as possible, you know, and really understand what they're going through. Because sometimes all they need is a chance to vent. If it's a coaching moment, like, man, that guest really got to me, this is what they said, and really being able to talk through it. And this is where my experience, you know, comes in. And just being able, there was one podcast that I was listening to. It was Oprah, the Soulful Sundays, and it was with Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's I pulled over, I was biking home, and I called my old manager, because I was like, oh my God, this is what one-on-ones are about. It's listening with the intent of removing somebody's pain or suffering. And I find myself in my role practically every day. I'm constantly having to like remove pain or suffering, you know, and just coaching, like being in that moment. It's like, hey, don't worry about that right now, or know that you're supported. It's a lot of that. And it does take a lot of energy. So it's also a lot for me to even manage my own emotional labor and like finding my own times to decompress and be kind to myself. But I think it is important, and it's a big part of my role that I have to accept that is what I have to do every single day. And I'm happy to be that, you know, for my team, because that's what keeps them moving forward as well.
Yeah. Okay, this is another question. We've got quite a few questions, so hopefully we can get through all of them. So I appreciate you intentionally in working alongside your baristas. I'm curious to hear, how do you approach leadership development for your team as they grow?
I can start if Dee, you want to jump in if I miss anything. But again, this is just built into our values, right? The BU aspect of our values helps us to pay attention to their strengths. And in the beginning, everybody is just, we like to say that they're bardists, right? Our baristas are also artists, artistic in their own skill, right? And so everybody comes in as a bardist or barista, and they're just making coffee. But as you get to know them and they're being themselves, you start to see their strength. And the track of development for any of our team members is our noticing of their strengths and parts of Gilly as a company that we need to grow in. So for instance, again, one of our team members, incredible communicator. When he came in, he was just as sharp as a barista as he was a communicator. So we didn't see the communications aspect of him until we started to build more relationship and watch him grow and develop. And now he's become our director of communications. And so a lot of that is, we do our one-on-ones, we're checking in, we're training, but we're also noticing their strengths and helping them grow and push them into their strengths. And it's another part of our value of get uncomfortable, right? Like be comfortable with change. And change also to us means, if we see your strengths, we're going to keep pushing you in that direction so that you keep being sharper as you work for us. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do, each of you, to ensure your values your workers feel valued. You've talked about pushing them, supporting, being on bar, especially during the pandemic, and letting them know that you're aware of how they're feeling and being present. So what do you each do to particularly ensure that they feel valued?
I think those check-ins are really important. Just shooting them a message, hey, how's your day? Especially during the pandemic, I know there's been a lot of loss. And so being sympathetic, empathize as well, is just letting them know that you see them not just as an employee, like Neff mentioned earlier, we really try to create a family bond, and we get to know each other outside of the bar as well, when we hang out with one another. So getting to know them in that way. And I don't know if you've seen images of our bar, but our bar space in Stone Mountain is really small. So it kind of forces you to have to build a relationship, honestly, because there's no way you can be in that space and not get to know the person you're working with. And so, I just feel like, discerning and understanding how that person reacts to certain things, and meeting them where they are. I know early on, Neff even pointed it out to me how the way I communicate to some of the employees, some of them weren't able to receive it as well because it came off as a little harsh. And so instead of saying to myself, well, man, that's just how I communicate, I had to understand that when I'm speaking to such and such, I have to be mindful of how they may receive it. And so, I mean, I'm still learning, and not perfect at all, but everyone receives and communicates differently, and being able to adapt to how that person receives and communicates is really, really imperative.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Daniel. And just to step in, because it is always just realizing that different people need different communication channels, or the way you communicate to them. And I think it's really great that you say you're still learning. I'm still learning. Everybody will always still learning, but it's always keeping that at the forefront that we still have things to learn. So always be ready to adapt, be like water. So Nathaniel, do you?
Yeah, I think Daniel said it. I think we're just constantly, again, paying attention to our team and noticing, also giving them compliments. We'll walk into the bar and then we'll see them doing great, and we exaggerate like their efforts, and it becomes a funny moment for the customers that are there with us, and they often join in. So we just noticing them and celebrating them.
And then I wanted to chime in too. First, I want to say, I love how calibrated the three of us, actually, you too, Elizabeth. I just love that we all share the same values, because it is really important, right? And so I think for me, showing how much I value my team, one of our hospitality guideposts at Blue Bottle, I didn't create it, is begin and end with gratitude. So for example, again, when we come off of those really stressful shifts, like this weekend was horrible on us. It was so busy, we ran out of product even, and it was so stressful. So especially on those days, it's important, right? We have the capacity when we're on that floor to be aware of everything. And if you don't, be aware of everything, right? Because the important part, again, when we go into post shift, I want to be able to tell every single person that was on that bar, in the morning, thank you for doing this. We did this well together. And I think if I wasn't paying attention, if I was heads down through that whole time, I wouldn't be able to be specific in my praise and in my gratitude. And so I think that that's where being a barista, as well as being a leader on the floor, really comes to my advantages, because I can be doing the physical work while having full cafe awareness and paying attention to everybody that's on the floor with me, with the intention of giving it back to them when we sit and talk for post shift, where it always starts and ends with gratitude. We go through the whole team, this was really great when you did this. I felt really supported. Like Neff said, high fives in the middle of the floor. When we clear a rush, even if it's only going to last 2 minutes at this time, that's high fives all around. And it just really, and this is where also I think all three of us are really calibrated in our personalities, because, I'm also just naturally like that. I want to give praise. I want to be like, I want to hype them up. I want them to feel excited that we all did this and we crushed this together. But it is also a conscious effort that you have to make.
I think that's great. Oh, so we've got 1 minute left, and I've just got this. There are more questions, but I think we're not going to be able to go through them. So please reach out to them individually to ask your questions. They're more than welcome to accept them. But this last one, I guess 20 seconds each. How do you support veteran baristas who may be experiencing industry burnout and begin to negatively affect or influence the team?
Man, burnout is, yeah, it's a thing. I've experienced it. Daniel has. Burnout is a really real thing. I think for us, we always allow them the space to reset. And we ask them, hey, do you need a break now? Like, you need to go on vacation. And we're just having honest conversations about what they expect their life to be like. What do you envision for yourself? How do you see yourself in the next 3 to 4 years? How can we support that? And if you need to pause to do that, then let's pause. And so I think because that relational equity exists, there is a conversation in which we know what our baristas want to do in 5 years. We know where they want to be, and constantly just being aware and in communication with them. Hey, is this a time that we need to vacate and reset and rethink what the season of life looks like for you? So I think it's just honest conversation and again, placing them within, at least for us as a team, placing them in their strength and in the space that they want to grow and where they actually see themselves, and not trying to make them something that they don't want to be, and or celebrating them when they move on to the next thing. We're definitely big on like, hey, if it's time to move on, we're going to celebrate you and be a part of that next journey of life, even if it's not with you at our bar.
I think that's great. So that wraps up our session. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you all. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure the audience have also enjoyed this too. So we'll be back with session 2 in a few minutes. Say hi to in the chat in the meantime, and we really hope you've enjoyed this session. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.